travel where I have fallen asleep at dinner. Like I'm embarrassed to admit this. The jet lag is so bad. I have fallen asleep at dinner.
Well, maybe that's the wine, Chris. Do you think
No,
that might have accelerated that?
No, it can't be the wine. There was a gentleman, I forget his name. There was a gentleman years ago, and I think we were in London, and I forget where he had come in from, but he just started babbling. Like nonsensical.
Well, you need some of what he has to maintain that energy when you're traveling. I respect that. Yeah,
it might be. So hopefully the jet lag's not too bad now that you're back in Melbourne.
No, look, it's great to be back. It was a pretty phenomenal experience being over in the US. You know, the highlight was for sure being at PSYOP.
We got to talk about that.
Have you ever been?
I have not been, and I kind of want to go, and then I feel like maybe
go next year for sure. Yeah, it's compared to HR Tech conferences, there is an endless array of deep thinking, research, and just very impressive, smart people thinking about people.
Okay.
So, highly recommended.
All right. Well, we've got Matt Charney coming on the show in a couple of weeks, and he was there, so I'm sure it's going to come up.
He was totally intimidated.
I think they were intimidated by him. All right, you ready to get
going? Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Welcome to the CXR channel, our premier podcast for talent acquisition and talent management. Listen in as the CXR community discusses a wide range of topics focused on attracting, engaging, and retaining the best talent. We're glad you're here.
All right, welcome back, loyal listeners of the CXR Podcast. I'm Chris Hoyt, president of Career Crossroads, and your host for the next 20 minutes or so. If you're new to the show, we connect you with a recruiting industry leader or practitioner to provide a little insight into what they're working on or what they're thinking in regards to the hot topics that most of us are working through. Now, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the show from wherever you're listening, be it YouTube or Spotify, and any other broadcast service that you may be on there. If you're catching us on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or other social platform, you can most certainly find the full show and all of the previous episodes out at cxr.work/podcast. Now, today I'm excited to introduce a new guest to the show. We've got a first timer. Say hello to everybody, Barb.
Hello, everybody. Great to be here.
Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really delighted to be part of this.
Oh, well, we're excited. We have a little fun. You've now seen the extent of the technical part of the show, so that's about it. That's as good as it gets. Look, Barb, for those who may not know who you are, can you give us an escalator pitch about yourself, kind of where you work, what you do, maybe even how long you've been in the space?
Okay, for sure. So Barb Hyman, mother of three, CEO and founder of Sapia.ai, formerly known as Predictive Hire. We've just rebranded. My background is a lot of things. I'm a bit of a career mongrel. I started out as a lawyer. I think you call them attorneys over in the US. And then post-MBA moved into strategy consulting. So I worked at BCG for many years and then found myself in HR. So a lot of my career has actually been in the HRD role, first for BCG and then for a large digital company in Australia. And from there, I started Sapia. So I'm not a technologist. I'm someone that comes from the experience of living the pain of what I think many of you experience day to day. And, it's a privilege to be in a role like this, really, solving your problems.
Well, right. Hopefully. Let's talk about, you mentioned there's been a little bit of a rebranding going on. What's behind that? What's that about?
Yeah. So look, the aspect of HR and everything to do with people that I feel is missing is the human side. How do you actually really connect with people and meet them where they are? And, I was one of the first in Australia to bring in Culture Am, to bring in Workday, but at the end of the day, it didn't really change the way that people felt about their connection with the organisation and engagement and their understanding of themselves. And so what I wanted to do was really bring technology chat in a way that empowered people, that dignified experiences like recruitment, that helped people learn about themselves, And that's the journey that we've been on. So we've really invented something quite brilliant, which is the ability to understand you as a human being deeply through a conversation. It's only 5 questions, and we help you get smarter from that experience. We obviously also help the organization get smarter. That's where we make our money. But I've fundamentally believed that we're now moving into a world where you can't just deliver technology that helps the organization. You've got to deliver technology that helps the individual.
Yeah, I love that. And look, we don't want to do like a product show, but I do, the approach that you have taken is different. And I think it's really interesting because you're talking about 5 questions that are not solve a puzzle, that are not some sort of crazy equation, or from that element. It's a little bit different. It's more open-ended, isn't it?
Well, we've really scaled the science of a structured interview. And, that's for anyone who's in the IO space seen as the gold standard for how do you predict performance in a role. And we're trying to create what feels like a very normal experience like this. We're asking questions that you would ask, and the candidate is responding to those in their own voice, in their own time. So we're trying to remove all the fear and the anxiety that comes with applying for a job. Like when you think about it, it's far scarier for the individual than it is for the organization, because you're making a move, you're choosing your next partner, right? Like you spend more time at work than you do at home. And so how do you make that really safe and something people trust, which is really important. We'll get to that, I'm sure, on the AI side, and something which is humanizing. So everyone gets personalized insights and coaching, and that is a phenomenal way for you to help everyone, even those that don't get the job.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the different approach. I mean, so let's go to the AI piece, because these are little snackable podcasts. They're pretty quick. How do you see us sort of in this same vein, sort of advancing the field of using AI within that world of recruiting? I mean, why aren't we just there yet? Why do you feel like it's not perfect yet? What's missing?
So fundamentally, AI is something that unfortunately in the media and in our lives has been, a lot of scaremongering around that. In some cases, fairly so. I call it fear and loathing of AI. And there's a lot of misunderstanding, but there's also been some really big issues that have really impacted on fairness. So it is in some respects legitimate for people to worry about it. But like all technology, it evolves and improves over time. And, the obligation is on you as the person considering solving for your problems. How do I trust this? Like, what are the key questions I need to ask? So, there's absolutely AI that can interrupt bias in a way that humans can't. And there is AI that can amplify bias. And so part of what, I spend a lot of my time doing is trying to help organizations navigate that.
Yeah, I think that's a big call out too, because originally I remember in the space when we started talking about AI for recruiting, the fun thing to say and the headlines and the clickbaits was that, robots were going to take the recruiter's job. And I think what we have come to understand by and large within the industry is that it's not so much about taking the job as simplifying or assisting, right? That sort of thing. So it's not taking over the work.
Yeah. Look, it's co-pilot. That's the way we talk about it, is why wouldn't you want something in your job that takes all the crappy work that you don't really enjoy doing, which is phone screens asking the same question again and again, and reviewing CVs. No one's time is served well by screening CVs. And give that to technology that frankly can do it fairer and better and faster than you and see more than what you might see because of our own unconscious biases, so that you can free up time to actually be more of I call it a talent concierge, a talent business partner, and get away from the desk, and get into the business. Like when I was a CHRO, I was saying to our talent business partners, the best thing you can do is be a sounding board and an advisor to the HR managers. Help them figure out what it is that they really need and be a sounding board for how they make the right decision. Because the process of screening and assessment, really technology can do it better on every front, both from a candidate perspective and from a depth of insight. So it's a reimagination of the recruiter role. And a big part of what I think any head of TA needs to think about when they're bringing in AI is that you're really bringing in change, but it can be incredibly empowering, but it does require thought around, how do you land this in a way that people see the opportunity, not confronted by fear.
Yeah, Barb. So I love the call out, Barb. I wonder, there are some very forward-thinking organizations that are going all in on AI, right? And your product and some other products that use AI in the selection process. So I guess I would ask, speaking not on behalf of Sapient, not on behalf of the product, but as an expert in this field, right? As somebody who's doing their best to push this field forward and raise awareness, what would you tell a TA leader who maybe this seems like a scary job? This feels super risky. Can I really trust, this type of methodology or this approach to help with my selections to free up my recruiters? Like, what would you tell me?
Well, look, I think it's like any decision that you make in life. How do you de-risk it? And you de-risk it by firstly getting people in the business who can be alongside with you as you bring this change in. Don't do it solo. Like, I think anyone in TA knows that if you're bringing in change, you need to engage the business. You need to make it something that is required by the business, not something that's preferred by TA. So make it a collective team of people across the business. Get sponsors within the business. TA and HR should not be sponsoring any new technology. It should always come from the business. I fundamentally believe that. The second thing is talk to other customers who are using this and ask them, like you do in a reference check, very probing, confronting questions around, the value. Like, what has been the value delivered? What hasn't worked? Ask the same thing of the vendor. Like, what do we need to do in order to make this work? What every vendor wants to do is be a partner with the client and help them navigate this. A huge part of this is, how do we make you successful? How do we de-risk it for you personally, so that you don't fear that you're going to be fired for bringing in change? So I think it's to, I'd say to TA is don't hold back so much. If you really have a hypothesis that this change is going to help, then lean in and trust and start to build a partnership.
So what would you tell?
Apart from all the due diligence on the technology and tech manuals and so on, but I think sometimes it's a bit like an M&A deal. You're on other sides of the table, but you've really got to get on the same side of the table if you're going to make this work for the client.
Yeah. Well, I love the call out of, like, there are other businesses within the business, right, within the organization that should be involved in that. I mean, we have a lot of, and I have been one of them. We have a lot of TA leaders who just kind of run a little bit rogue, right, implementing new tech or solutions because they want to get that in there. But it's not always easy to get that kind of partnership internally. And I also will say, Barb, I appreciate go talk to people who have done this before. Who are on sort of the cutting edge, right, or that bleeding edge of the tech, and taking those risks up front to help mitigate your own risk a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are fast followers out there. We target fast followers in our technology marketing, and understand who they are. I'm sure that you know who they are, and learn from them, because there's a lot of risk in bringing in technology that fails on many fronts. And I come back to that point about everything is about how do you de-risk a big decision like that. I think the other thing, I just want to provide a different lens, which is, so as a CHRO, which I used to be, you have to involve that person in this journey. I think too much TA is a bit of a bubble. And how do you connect the dots between what it is that you're doing and wanting to do with technology or with change, and how does that ladder up to the people strategy? So you always want to tell a story around change against the lens of, what is the CHRO telling the board and the CEO about the people, strategy that she or he is working towards, and how does this accelerate that? Because if you get that person talking about it, then you've kind of won half the battle. Also really understand that if this isn't one of their top 3 priorities, which I'd find it very hard to believe if it's not, because every single CEO is obsessed and worried and paranoid about talent, then, that's your seat at the table, right? You have to get what you're doing on that agenda. And frankly, if it's not on their agenda right now, then, jump ship to another organization.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole nother conversation, right? A whole nother conversation. But let me ask you, normally I like to ask a guest who comes in as an expert or a subject matter passionate person, what's really evolved in the last 5 years, and then kind of ask them where they think something's going in the last 5 years. And we've had to cut that down when we get to tech to like 2 years, 3 years. But I feel like AI moves so fast and so much is happening that to ask you 3 years ago, 5 years ago, where we were versus where we are now? It's kind of a silly question because it was still just landing on everybody's radar, and all of these solutions were popping up. So I'm going to skip the where were we story, right? The part of that question. And I want to ask you, what do you anticipate we should see or experience in this space in the next 2, 3, or 5 years? Like what is right around the corner for us, or that we should be watching for?
So firstly, I'll be contrarian and say I don't think much has changed.
Really?
If my really cynical hat is that the last great innovation in HR was the Netflix culture deck. When you think about, are we really delivering talent exponentially faster? Are we fundamentally transforming the experience that people are having through that? Are we getting deeper insight into how our people are feeling day to day? There's a lot of technology, but if you look at the measures, I'm not sure that actually you can see the results. I think what's changed is bigger picture, which is that in the context of AI and in general in HR, particularly with 67% of people now working virtually, and the movement around AI that gives me my agency, control over my data, rights over my data, I think that's the huge change. And that was obviously started with GDPR, and it's being accelerated with all the other changes that are coming in. And so again, I put my CHRO hat on and say that, how do you create a culture of trust? Because I think a culture of trust is what endears people to want to be with you, to work, harder and put in that discretionary effort to stick around. And I think the technology choices you make play into that big time. And the way in which you respect and dignify the individual at the heart of that, first the candidate, then the employee. So the balance between the organization calling the shots and all of this technology top down, I think is going to massively invert to be, what can we do to really build trust with that human being from the very first, moment of interaction? What do we need to do differently in our technology? What technology do we not use? How transparent can we be? How do we give them the power to make decisions for them, not just us to make decisions for us? So I think there's more of a global macro movement about respecting the individual and AI that can be used for good, but gives them a huge voice in that process.
Barb, you know why I like talking to you? You look, you're in the tech space, and maybe it's the CHRO and you sort of shining through, but you're using words like heart and feel and people. It's like your talent before your tech, right? And it's important that you're tying all of that piece together. And I just absolutely love that, because you're not forsaking the whole reason we're doing this. You're doing this for the reason of the people in the beginning, right? Bringing in the talent, making sure the right talent is there, and building the relationships, using the tech as a, would you call it? You didn't say companion. What did you say?
As a co-pilot.
Co-pilot. I love that.
Yeah.
Technology.
Well, our fundamental principle is human first, technology second in the business. And, there's a wonderful podcast I just listened to with Eric Schmidt and Sam Harris, where he talks about, AI and the threat and the opportunity. And, he talks about AI is really about making everyone smarter. And why would you hold back on that? So if you're going to go in and think about using AI in your business in HR, is think about it with that lens, because that's motivating, that's empowering. That's what I'd love people to really embrace, is that, it can be fair. It can be fairer than humans. The other thing I want to challenge is this notion that you need to have a human experience. We've shown that you don't.
Okay. Well, so if I'm just getting started, if I want to learn more, if I'm a TA leader and I've not done this before, and that it just seems a little scary, Barb, where would you tell me to start?
Well, for our product, you can try it on the website. You can give it a go and see what it's like yourself. In terms of just connecting with me, I'd love you to follow me on Twitter, Barb Hyman 1. I'm posting more now. It seems like in the US, people really love Twitter. Just feel free to reach out to have a conversation. But, I think that there's obviously experts like you and what Career Crossroads are doing in terms of helping organizations navigate change and understand what's out there in the landscape. There's no cheat sheet to figuring it out.
No.
It's heavy lifting, but I mean, why wouldn't you want to be in HR or TA at this time? Because there is a lot of exciting things happening. So, and I also put a plug in for PSYOP. I just came back from the US. We presented at PSYOP. really HR also and TA, go beyond your world, like go beyond your bubble. Go to a conference that isn't a TA conference and see what you can learn. I think that ability to understand innovation in other sectors, like I'm always thinking about what's the analogy here from another, part of our business. What if marketing doing? Go to a marketing conference, because marketing is about 10 years ahead of HR when it comes to using AI.
More. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that's such a, we get so busy and we get so stuck heads down that I think we forget that there are other lanes that we could be swimming in.
Yeah.
At least putting our feet in for a little bit, right? Before we come back and sort of leach some of that expertise into our own.
Yeah. And hire different people into your team. I mean, I'm not a technologist, right? And, I have a kind of curious background, but I have been able to build the product, and my partner, my co-founder's Booty, who's a PhD in NLP, and we would not have the technology we have without both of us. So think about the power of difference. I believe that innovation comes from the intersection of difference, and every TA team right now is innovating. So hire people that are really lateral into your team. It will just give you more confidence, I think, as a team. It de-risks decision-making because you'll have just contrarian views, and you'll create much more team engagement.
Oh my God, it's fantastic. Barb, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you're super busy all the way on the other side of the world, so I appreciate you making time for us.
Thanks so much, Chris. Have a great day.
Thank you. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere just yet, all right? All right, so I do want to take us out really quickly. I want to remind everybody on May 17th, our members are invited to join us for another one of our monthly CXR lecture series. These sessions, for those who don't know, we actually bring in a professional speaker and presenter to discuss top areas of interest that were actually selected by our membership leaders, or talent and heads of talent and talent leaders. The coming up topic, or the topic we've got right up next, I'm trying to think. Oh, remote work 3.0. So it's going to be a good one. You can get all of that, more information, cxr.work/lecture. You can see the past sessions as well as what's coming up next. Also, May 19th, you're not going to want to miss. It's our next member and alumni meeting. And we're open to, those are literally open to any current or former CXR members. We're issuing a call to action for transparency around minimally acceptable and unacceptable practices that are often inaccessible to each of us, both the stakeholders responsible for the hiring and, of course, the managing of that talent. Be sure to join us for that. It does come on the back end of a series of posts you'll find on CXR.works. Jerry Crispin has published some of those in there, and there's some research that we're doing around what elements of transparency are most important. So check those out, take part in that, and cast your vote. With that, I want to thank everybody for being here, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the CXR channel. Please subscribe to CXR on your favorite podcast resource and leave us a review while you're at it. Learn more about CXR at our website, cxr.works, facebook.com and twitter.com/careercrossroads, and on Instagram @careerxroads. We'll catch you next time.